I mean, obviously, I thought our guys responded, to practice this morning in a good way after, it's kind of hard on a short turnaround. Not play, but we practiced a lot, last night after coming back from California and to come back this morning and have meetings and get back out on the practice field in full pads. They kind of pushed through it today. So it was good work. Still a lot of, ones on ones or good versus good. There at the end, we got a couple of, Tennessee carded looks. It'll be kind of the, same routine a little bit. We're kind of getting a little bit more into a regular season type of schedule. Not necessarily doing all the same things that we would do during the regular season from a, game plan and preparation standpoint, but yet wanting our guys, coaching staff to kind of get used to what it's going to be like during the regular season week. So we're not doing that for the first time, getting ready for Carolina. So it's kind of what we got going on.
Was the last sort of team sets today about kind of scouting Tennessee?
Yeah, the last period of the day was carded periods versus Tennessee looks.
And so how does that impact things like evaluate? Like, are there still things to evaluate player?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you're still evaluating whether a guy knows what to do, but it's not the same speed and tempo from a contact standpoint, maybe as some of the, the other periods are. But I'm still evaluating if I'm on what I call the show team, and I'm a show team receiver, I want to see, can you get freaking open? If I'm a show team offensive lineman, I want to see if you can block us. So those are the things that you're looking at. And conversely, if I'm on the show team and I'm a corner, like, can you cover them? Like, I'm looking for that. Can you, as a defensive lineman, get off a block and make a play? And so there's still evaluation that takes place in that portion of practice.
What do you guys learn about Kyle Herbold during this camp?
Well, I think he's a young guy that, as an undrafted free agent that's come in and done some good things. And he's kind of put himself in contention for whether it be a practice squad spot or roster spot, whatever the case may be. I mean, the number one thing for him, and it's generally this way with a lot of, undrafted players and rookies in general, is like, availability is the most important ability. So if you're out here and practicing, we get a chance to evaluate you. If you're not, it's hard for us to make evaluations. So I think that'd be the number one thing I'd say, is he's been available for us all throughout training camp. So we've gotten a good chance to evaluate the player.
I know we've asked about him a few times, but like Kendrick's still not being out there. Like, how do you weigh what you've seen in the past versus not really seeing anything right now?
Well, look, I mean, honestly, I get that question a lot. I don't. All I can go off of is what I've been able to evaluate, and quite frankly, since we drafted him, there hasn't been a whole lot of new information other than what I've seen, what I saw on the college tape, because he hasn't been available, and so, and for whatever the case may be, but it's hard to make that evaluation. So. Hopefully we can get him out here and have an opportunity to, evaluate where he's at. But it certainly, certainly makes it a lot more challenging. That's for sure.
Is that harder to do too? Because new system, you don't necessarily know if he can't evaluate what he's picked up, what he knows, what he can do. Is it worse right now given that circumstance?
Yeah, I mean, I got no idea.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think he injured his hamstring in the first individual drill of training camp, and I haven't seen anything of him. So he's talented. I know he's talented, but I don't know if he can learn the system. I don't know if he can pick up the system because I haven't seen him out there. So
roster cuts are like less than a week. I mean, is he a candidate for IR?
I'm pretty aware of when the roster cuts are. You know, yeah, I'm not going to speculate on any type of roster moves or anything like that. You know, we'll evaluate where we're at when it comes time to cut down the roster, and we'll make decisions that we think are best for our football team.
Just for clarity too, on Rashid Shaheed, I know it was a toe/foot. Does he have turf toe or anything? Is it that serious, or is it?
No, I don't anticipate that this is going to be something that's going to, you know, keep him out for, you know, extended period of time. So, but look, he's another guy that, you know, we'd like to get him out here and get some looks. You know, when you're the play caller and you're trying to put guys in the best position to do the things that they do well and to have success, it's easier to do when you've had experience with a certain player, right? So you kind of know, you've been in that battle, you've been in that war with that player, and so you kind of know what to expect. Being that this is a new system and a new play caller, you know, I think it's important that we figure out, like, how we're going to utilize certain players. And so it makes it more challenging when guys, you know, aren't out here. Now, doesn't mean you can't get the job done. You know, we still have a job to do. Whatever, you know, adversity that we face, we have to figure it out. But it makes it more challenging when guys aren't out here. And look, you know, part of the deal as the play caller, and you're dealing with these skilled players, is, man, we want to utilize your talents and what you can do really, really well. And the more I'm around you, the more I spend time with you, the more I see from you, the easier it is for me to envision, okay, all right, these are the things that I think I can call from a play call standpoint that's going to put this guy in the best position to have success. And so it's challenging when guys aren't out here.
And just kind of going back on that, the Kendrick Miller line, how would you just assess the running back depth behind Alvin overall through these weeks right now?
Yeah, I feel comfortable with where we're at. I like our players, and I think we've got guys that can play in the National Football League, so that's not a concern of mine.
With all the injuries the offense has had during training camp, how much do you think that is maybe stymied some of the progress in learning the new system?
I would say it's definitely had an effect, and yet it is what it is, right? So nobody really cares about how many injuries you're dealing with. It's about, you know, the bottom line and producing, and, you know, certainly we're still in the preseason, you know, portion of our schedule, so we've got time to get some things ironed out. I thought the offense had a hell of a practice today. I thought the timing and the rhythm in the passing game was pretty cool to see. I thought that was a step forward. I thought some of the things we did in the run game in those two early periods, I was pleased with what I saw offensively. So when I look at and I go back and I say 16 plays, 95 yards in a preseason game, I saw some things, some signs of things that I really liked. I thought the last two practices I saw some things that showed some progress from an offensive standpoint. So we're not where we need to be yet in any phase, to be honest with you. But I do like some of the progress that I've seen over the last, you know, week or so.
What did Lucas Patrick leave with?
Cramps. But two guys, him and John Abram, both left with cramps today. So it's not California weather anymore, even though we were indoors.
With Udo and Petting, it seemed like they split first team reps pretty evenly. I know you touched on it yesterday, but like, is that kind of where this competition is right now? Is it that even to you, or is it?
Well, look, I think it's one of those deals where we want to get Ole some reps in there with the ones, see what that looks like. You know what I mean? I would still give the advantage to Trevor right now. But much like I've said in some of the other position battles that we're not quite settled on yet, I'm still waiting on the one guy that's going to jump out at me and say, man, this is my freaking job, and I think when it happens, I think we're all going to know when it happens. We're all going to see it. And so I'm still kind of waiting for that moment right now.
Cedric Wilson kind of had that, or just that trying to give away on the third receiver job, but like, has he had that kind of?
Look, I like the veteran presence that he has. All right. I don't know if you paid attention to the crack toss block that he had in the game the other day. That was awesome. Probably my favorite play of the game. Foster coming down, on the end and him getting to the linebacker. I mean, I thought that was like real football. So that was cool to see. I think some of the contested catch stuff is something that I'm counting on him being able to do for us. So I'd like to see him, improve in that area. But there's a lot of different things that he can do. And I think that, can benefit our football team.
And this, sometimes when you've talked about Clint, you kind of referenced his dad. Is that a factor when you're thinking about hiring him, and just like knowing like kind of what he came from, and do you remember even like coaching against some of those Gary Kubiak?
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I think it was 2009, we went there and practiced against them in training camp. And it was hot, tough, competitive, I think there was a few fights in that deal, if I can remember correctly. But I thought that was part of developing, the type of team that we were going to be that year. So, yeah, I think some of that, comes into play. I mean, obviously, you're hiring a guy to do the job, all right? And I hired Clint. I didn't hire Gary. I hired Clint to do the job. But certainly I think his pedigree would lead me to believe that he has a chance to be successful at doing that. So that was part of the equation, but I would say the majority of the equation was based on how I felt about Clint and what I think he can do. But it didn't hurt that, I knew Gary and had an opportunity to go against some of his offenses. And I mean, if you go back and look at his career, man, it's pretty impressive in terms of the offensive rankings of the offenses that he was involved with. So I'm hopeful we'll be able to have the same type of success.
We've been able to notice just so many like common sense solutions and approaches to the game from this offensive scheme. I mean, is there an element of it so simple it's brilliant that draws you to it? Or?
Well, look, I've kind of always felt this way. It's really not about what you play; it's about how you play. And I think sometimes we as coaches can try to overcomplicate this game. There's a few things, both offensively and defensively, that obviously I won't get into, but there's a few things that just, have to happen for you to be able to have success. And if you do these few small things and you can be disciplined enough to do these things every play, then you're going to have a chance to have success. So there is some aspects to let's don't overcomplicate this thing. Let's have a set of rules of things that, of how we operate. And usually if you just operate within the rules of that scheme, offensively, defensively, in the kicking game, you can function at a pretty good level. Now, there may be some times where you don't like certain matchups and things like that, and you have to, work around those a little bit, but it's probably not as complicated as people might want to make it feel.
I might be getting out of my depth here, but in that same vein, Jake mentioned that you guys are using more pure progressions on offense. Is that something that helps with kind of moving it it a little more simple with how much disguise there maybe is with defense and stuff?
Well, look, I think some of what we do allows the quarterback a little bit more, freedom to just play the game, and not have so much of the responsibility of having to orchestrate every minute, tiny detail in what we're doing offensively, and it frees him up just to play the game a little bit. So, hopefully that'll provide some benefit to us, throughout this season.
What do you think leads to some of the overcomplicating?
I think part of it is us as coaches, okay? We worry too much about what the other team's gonna do and how do we get the best play versus this particular look, or how do we get the best play versus this particular offensive scheme. And look, there's part of that goes into this, and that's part of, the game planning process. But the reality is, if I know what I'm doing and I can execute what I'm doing at a higher level than you're able to execute what you're doing, I think I have a good chance for success. Challenges come in when guys don't know exactly what to do, right? And so that happens sometimes when you're trying to have the best answer on every single play. And so sometimes you get overly complicated, and you get it to a point where your players can't execute what you're trying to ask them to execute. So I kind of come from the thought process of, keep it simple and give them some rules to live by. And if they start doing things that affect my rules, then we'll have to either get to a different call or we'll have to make an adjustment then.
I want to circle back to your availability comments. I might be off base here, but are you concerned in any way that teams' expectation or projection for recoveries from certain injuries and the players' or the representatives' projections are not always aligned?
Well, look, I mean, here's the reality, okay? The reality is nobody knows. There's no concrete, evidence that says this particular injury is going to take this long to heal. And there's a difference between when is it healed to the point that there's no risk of re-injury, and how do we get a guy back in the fold and get him not just physically ready to play, all right, but physically prepared to play. It's one thing to say that, okay, I'm in a spot now where I can run full speed, all right, but if I haven't been running full speed for any significant length of time, well, I'm not going to be prepared to go out and play in a 60-play game. It's not going to happen. So I think everybody wants to look at and say, okay, this guy's got a sprained ankle and he's going to be out for 2 weeks. Well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Some people, their bodies heal faster. Some people's bodies don't heal as fast. Some people can push through some discomfort. Some people struggle more with that. It's just part of, so it's hard to say that you can pinpoint exactly how long something's going to take. Now, I think we generally have a pretty good idea. Are we right every single time? No. But I would say more often than not, we got a pretty good idea, and I think our medical people do an outstanding job. And so, but look, injuries happen in football. It's part of the business, okay? Nobody likes it, but it's part of the deal.
Are there any concerns about preventive body maintenance when a player has a high frequency of
Sure.
certain types of.
Yeah, we do all kinds of stuff for that.
I mean, do you get concerned with maybe a lack of on the player's part when there's a high frequency of certain types of injuries?
We're getting into hypotheticals here, right? You know? Yeah, we're getting into hypotheticals, all right? Now, you may have certain individuals in your mind, but look, I think the reality of life is that, you know, some people, you know, can grind through some things, and some people it's a little bit more of a challenge for, all right? Our job is to, you know, try to get our guys as healthy as we can, put them in the best position to have success, all right? Coach the hell out of them, and go play football. And that's what we're going to do. All right? Thanks, guys.